Pilbara is famous for its rich iron ore deposits, but an accidental prospector made an extraordinary gold find while mustering cattle in a helicopter. When he landed, Jonathan Campbell saw gold nuggets lying on the ground. His discovery has sparked a gold rush in the region, but he says he still prefers cattle to gold.
These hills are red and rocky, but within them there's actually plenty of gold. This part of the Pilbara in Western Australia is going through its very own gold rush. It's a region rich in iron ore mining, so gold is an anomaly. In fact, it was only discovered by chance.
It was just right time, right place. We were just doing our job at the time and literally we just kicked our feet on a rock that had gold.
In 2016, Jonathan Campbell was a contract musterer. He loves cattle and has been working in the industry on and off his entire life.
Sort of grew up in Coonabarabran, New South Wales, and we had a farm just out not far from us that my family worked on, and they still do to this day. And I can remember sort of sitting on the front seat of the truck on a frosty morning while Mum and my grandmother were feeding cattle. So I've always been involved in cattle. You want me to lift you up?
But one day, 2 years ago, while aerial mustering, he spotted a hidden prospectors' camp with no one in it. A few days later he returned. The camp was gone, but he did his own investigation with a friend and a metal detector.
When I first got out there, I found an enormous amount of gold. There was gold littered across the ground for literally 8 kilometres. It was popping out of the ground and disappearing and popping out again. And where it popped out of the ground, there could be hundreds of nuggets on the ground.
Whatever happened to that first prospector is a bit of a mystery. They may not realise they've missed such a windfall. But over the next 8 weeks, Jonathan and 2 friends were kept busy with discovery after discovery.
We could pick up anywhere from $10,000 a day to $5,000 to $20,000.
Word soon got to the city of Karratha, about 40 kilometres away. But there was a problem. A company called Armada already had a lease over the land with all the gold. But the right to prospect is quite complicated, and Jonathan Campbell was able to take out a special lease on top of Armada's lease, which meant he was able to keep what he was finding. But he needed to track down Armada.
We were flying along and we seen a bulldozer on the side of the hill, which is now Mount Shoal, and put the helicopter down and walked over, and there's this tall gentleman there and introduced ourselves, and he explained what they were doing there. They'd been picking up a bit of gold, and we said, do you know this Armada company? He said, well, that's me, that's us.
You'd go to the local pub and everybody would be waxing lyrical about what they were going to do in the weekend, and that it was too windy to go boating, so they were going to go metal detecting. And you'd see them the next week and you say, well, how did the metal detecting go? And they're all able to throw out a handful of nuggets worth thousands of dollars.
Once Artemis realised what a gold mine it was sitting on, it started exploration all over again. It was the first gold company in the Pilbara to start announcing significant gold finds. But it was an open secret amongst locals.
He told me where it was, and the next day I drove down to go and have a look.
Geologist and managing director for Armada and now Artemis Resources, Ed Mead, had always believed there was gold around, but he'd missed it.
I'd always had a feeling that there was significant gold up here, partly because the size of, or consistent size of large gold nuggets that prospectors had been locally finding and have been finding for, say, generations.
This region has long been known for its vast resources.
And it was at that point that I looked around and went, there's been a lot of explorations done up here, yet no focus on gold. And how can, a lot of companies not be exploring up here, yet, some guy that might be working or a cleaner for Woodside can go out on the weekend and find gold, but a company can't.
Artemis isn't the only company interested. Quinton Henney from Novo Resources has also had his eye on the Pilbara for years, and he's looking for a big prize. The problem is, the Pilbara is ancient. It was ancient even before Indigenous people arrived, and the rock is hard, so that makes it expensive.
Most of the deposits, for example, in the eastern goldfields, are deposits that are controlled by faults in the ground, structures and things like this. So the geometry of them is quite different. They're usually linear features, and they mine these things in open pits. They're fairly predictable. They're fairly easy to understand. The conglomerate-hosted systems, I would say there's very, very little experience amongst the geologic community here in Australia with this type of system.
South Africa's Witwatersrand Basin is well known for having a lot of gold in interesting shapes, like watermelon seeds. And that's what they're also finding in the Pilbara.
They're small, flattened nuggets about the size and shape of a watermelon seed. That said, there's really not that much that's special about them. They're simply flattened, what we call alluvial or placer nuggets, gold nuggets. And they've been trapped in the conglomerate, buried for 2.7 billion years. And we've come along and popped them out of the ground and given them this wonderful name.
The problem for Australian resources companies is they have no experience in looking for this type of gold. And that's where Australia's government research body, the CSIRO, comes in.
We're speaking to some companies about doing some science to understand where the gold comes from and how it got to where it is now, and how we can use what we find out to actually explore and help the companies who are exploring for the gold explore more effectively.
The CSIRO is now working alongside Artemis to find why this section of the Pilbara is so special and learn as much about it as they can. They hope to find the best and most efficient way to mine the gold and maybe find more.
Hopefully we'll be able to take the gold finds that have been found and reported across the Pilbara so far and kind of put those together, and we'll be able to say and help companies say whether it's possible to turn these into viable mines.
I said, well, plus I could do with a chocolate milkshake.